Hey, what's happening, family? It's your man, Mark Black. Before I get started today, I want to give a special shout out to somebody near and dear to me. Um, on this day, 11 years ago, there was a situation that occurred, an incident that happened that changed my entire life. I got a chance to know one of the coolest people I've ever had a pleasure of knowing in this life. Um, this little brother is an amazing little character, a big old heart, bright personality, cool ass person. And I'll be honest with you, I can't get enough of him. I always like being around him. I always like talking to him, hearing from him, playing with him, kicking it with him. Of course, I'm referring to my little man, Chance Jacob Michael, also known as Bug. Happy 11th birthday to you, my son. You're the reason why I do everything that I do. And I can't love you any more than I always have. Never forget that. All right, family. So, what I want to talk about today is something that I think has been needing to be talked about for quite some time, especially in relation to the ADOS transformational moment, this transformational push that we're making. There's a lot of things that we've seen in the last month or so that have been eye openers. People that we used to just accept as a matter of course have been getting canceled, tossed by the wayside. People we thought were advocates for us, we see, turns out, are willing to sell us to the highest bidder. Shout out to the congressional black carcasses, all of them, right? So ADOS has been opening the eyes, if you will, of a lot of black folk. And I intend to see that be more the case as we move forward, right? As we put more boots on the actual ground, knocking on doors, right? Getting our faces in front of other black folk, other ADOS folk, and really hipping them to what this thing is all about. You're going to see a lot of exposure of things that previously would have been hidden in the dark. Another thing that ADOS is doing is forcing us to sharpen our wits, right? We can't be intellectually lazy anymore, family. Like, one of the things that we've been taught as ADOS advocates is to ground yourself in the data, meaning you have to know your shit. You can't just go out there on a wing and a prayer. You can't go out there, thinking that you can, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, then baffle them with bullshit type of thing. No, you got other people who are espousing other interests who have no problem with marshaling as much data as they possibly can to use against you. So you have to know your shit, right? You have to be on point with your game. ADOS is forcing all of us as advocates, because remember, this isn't about leaders or personalities. This isn't about, this person was saying this and this person was saying that. I mean, there's some element of that to it. We know who the proponents of reparations and other ADOS issues have been throughout history. Shout out to all of them. I take nothing away from any of them. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. Shout out to Norris Shelton. Shout out to Yvette Tone and to everybody else that has been advocating for this work. Shout out to NCOBRA and other organizations. We might be doing it a little bit differently, but we stand on the shoulders of people who came before us, right? And that's the way these things work. But the thing that really needs to be talked about is how ADOS forces us to shift our focus away from personalities, ideologies, to a single issue, to single issue advocacy. Now, why am I hammering this home? There's a lot of people on social media, specifically YouTube, since that's my particular forum, that has seen ADOS and have thought in some way they could ride the coattails, if you will, right? They're not necessarily malicious folk, meaning they're not necessarily detractors, but what they are is mercenary. right? They see that people want to know about what ADOS is, what it's all about. They see that people are interested in listening to content that's specifically directed around ADOS and so on and so forth. And so they see the potential for them to get clicks, likes, to sell merchandise, to get Patreons, and so on and so forth, right? So their motives are not necessarily malicious, but they're mercenary. Some of these people have held themselves out to be detractors, right? To be opponents of ADOS. Although how the hell you can oppose a lineage is beyond me, but I digress. My point is that these people have previously been able to make their daily bread talking about various other subjects, right? Some of them talk about current events. Some of them have pet issues within the so-called Black community or the ADOS community that they would like to see addressed, right? Such as colorism, such as, gender relations and so on and so forth. And previously, that was how they made their daily bread. But now that ADOS and the discussions around our lineage are taking the primacy of place, they're wanting to attach their issue to how ADOS folk do things, right? How we're advocating for things. And we see you. They're exposing themselves, right? These mercenary attitudes that try to detract from single issue, single-minded focus. That's a problem. And that's something that we all need to step up to the plate and demand better from the people that create content around various subjects. This is not to say that you don't have interests outside of ADOS. I'm a human being. I have interests outside of ADOS. Of course I do. I like the game. I'm really heavily into politics, sociology, religious studies, and so on and so forth. I got a huge amount of interests that lie outside of ADOS. And should I decide I want to talk about them, there are plenty of forums in which I have a place to talk about them. But I don't have the option of splitting my focus when it comes to advocacy for my lineage, for our heritage. That's just not going to fly, right? There's this chick in particular that I've had a little bit of a back and forth with. I never even really heard of her. Her name's Chrissy, but I guess it appears that she's a pretty well-known YouTuber. And her whole lane has been about colorism. Again, not my lane, right? I don't have any plex about Chrissy speaking out on issues about colorism in the ADOS community or Black communities in general, because this appears to be a universal Black thing, right? Cool. She's the authority. She has the data to suggest it's a problem and so on and so forth. My issue with her is, however, is her desire to force ADOS to be ADOS plus. ADOS needs to be the death of intersectionality. What do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. I, as an ADOS man, am not talking about you are ADOS plus this or plus that. I don't care if you ADOS and you LGBTQIA. I don't care if you ADOS and religious. I don't care if you ADOS and not religious. I don't care if you ADOS and poor, ADOS and rich. I focus my advocacy on ADOS. We cannot turn this thing into an ADOS plus thing. We can't have people like Chrissy talking about, well, ADOS doesn't address colorism. Well, no offense, but bitch, you've been addressing colorism. Keep addressing it. Ain't got no plex about it. Do you, right? But keep your mouth off of this. ADOS isn't here to address everybody's little pet projects and side issues. It requires single-minded, single-issue, single-focus advocacy, period. There's a lot of debates and questions and things that we'll have to answer once we get our due. But fight to get your due. That's all I wanted to say on it, family. Again, happy birthday to you, Bug Man. I love you. And until the next time I see you, family, I want to wish you love, peace, prosperity, and power to our people.